I always argue with people and tell them that comedy is not art. It's not an art form. And I mean, what a great example that it's not art form where you're doing it and then someone goes, spaghetti's ready. And then the entire room gets up and goes and gets spaghetti.
Spaghetti is much better than comedy.
Always.
Yeah.
I'd rather eat spaghetti than do comedy.
I wanted to get on that line.
Can we get spaghetti now?
I would like to. I want to be at a podium.
What's up? I'm Zoltan Kaszas, and this is Jesse Egan.
That's me.
And thanks for joining me in someone else's living room.
I like it here.
Yeah, I wish it was mine.
I feel like I'm back in OB, really.
Oh yeah, this does have an Ocean Beach kind of incense kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, I've been searching for like weed.
You've been looking for I like how you were so quiet about it.
I had to search for that word either.
Yeah, illegal marijuana. Have you been diving into the edibles?
Olympic pool, baby.
That's something I was never really into. But like most people's alcohol intake has been really high during the pandemic.
Oh.
Mine's fallen off.
Mine's fallen off completely.
Yeah, because we always drank doing stand up. Because the bar was there, the drinks were free, so it was like a 4-drink minimum for us, 2 for the crowd.
Yeah.
But ever since the shows ended, I don't drink anymore.
Someone asked me this the other day. I think my girlfriend was like, I don't think you haven't drank at all. I guess I haven't been drunk once during this pandemic. I said to her, and then I said, but I've been high every second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing.
That's a weird coping mechanism.
I don't know what it is about the edibles. It's like I pop them in. And sometimes they kick in like half an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. So sometimes I forget that I'd taken one. And then like an hour and a half later, I'll just be like, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I took an edible.
The worst is when you find yourself on stage and you can't perform. I mean, that was the worst. I know that you've had one because we were there together, but
I ran off that stage.
I had one like that at the ACC with Joey Diaz.
Oh.
I was opening for him.
You smoked weed with Joey Diaz?
No, he gave me this like Chiba Chew edible, right? And first of all, the thing is marked like with little lines, like how much should I take? I go, Joey, should I eat a foot? Hey, cocksucker, you eat the whole thing, whatever, right? So I'm like, okay. So I eat the whole thing, and then it's 30 minutes goes by, and now it's my time to do 20 minutes on stage, and I go out there and I'm. And I was so out of it that I couldn't even drive home after the show. I sat in my car for 2 hours texting Joey going, what did you give me?
Oh my God.
And he didn't,
Yeah, he didn't know who you were. One time I was featuring for Joey Diaz. This is like 2008. So I think he was still into other stuff. Who knows? But I opened for him 3 nights in a row at 3 different venues. And all 3 times after the show, I even had to bring him up and do extra time because he was late to all 3 sets. And I would have to do extra time, and I was bringing him on. And all 3 times afterwards, I went up to him, thanked him, was like, hey, it was great working with you. And he talked to me like an audience member. He's like, hey, thanks for coming out. Appreciate the support. Yeah. And I'm like, well, it's the 3rd night. Like, don't I... At some point, aren't I looking familiar?
It's that short-term memory loss.
The immediate.
Yeah. But the worst one was with you, though, at the Palace, right?
Yeah. It was you, me, Bijan, and a couple others. And we did an early show. It went great. And the way we celebrated right before the late show was we took these Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah.
And I don't smoke weed that much. I'd never take edibles. And you guys are like professionals. Like, you guys should be sponsored.
I knew it was going to be bad, though, because normally those things take like an hour to kick in, or at least a half an hour. And I was feeling it like in 15 minutes.
Yep.
And when I was on right before you.
Yeah.
And I'm up there going, oh, man, what's going to happen to Zoltan? I was thinking about that during my set, like... If I can barely function.
Right, what am I supposed to do? Man. And I was trying not to go on stage. I remember the comic before you was Bij, and he's a tank. He can take any substance.
And he mentioned it while he
was on stage. He was in the middle of a joke and forgot his next word.
Yeah.
And in the middle, he just yelled at the audience and went, line! And nobody knew what that meant. And you laughed when he said it, and I went, oh no. Because I have like 30 more minutes until I go on. And I was in the back telling everyone, I don't want to go on stage. I can't go up there. I can't do it. And you guys are like, no, it's going to be fun. You're going to have a great time. And I'm like, I'm not having a great time now. I'm right now having a horrible time. And you're like, no, just go. So I go on stage and I'm like, oh boy. And I do my opening joke and it goes well. Everybody laughs.
And you're closing. You were slotted for like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going on very last. I have like 20 to 30 minutes to do. And I do all of maybe 4 minutes. I do my opening joke. It goes well. And then at the end of the joke, I remember having this moment of honesty with the crowd where I went, man, did that joke take 8 years to tell? And the whole crowd just stared at me like, what's he talking about? And then I was like, I'm high. And then as soon as I mentioned to the crowd that I was high, I felt all their eyes just judging me. Like, and I was like, and then I was like, well, I'm going to wrap it up. And then I told one more joke.
Well, that was the funny part, was that I knew you were wrapping it up because you were doing a closer at like minute 4.
Yep.
And I recognized the joke. I'm
Yeah.
like the only one in there watching this, like, it's the Palace. So nobody is, Zach is actually literally getting high in the parking lot while he's supposed
alley.
to be hosting. And no one's watching. And then you start in on a very short joke that I always know. You only have
closer.
used it as a closer.
Right.
So he's doing it as like your second joke. And I'm like, I think he's going to get off stage now. And BJ's like, nah. Yeah, he's getting off stage. And I have to run up and be like, yay.
And I just
You guys get to go home early.
I ran to the back and I sat in a chair. And this waitress came by and yelled at me like, we didn't even get done passing the checks. And I'm like, whatever. You think the earth is flat? Like, I couldn't defend myself. And then the worst part was there was a guy at the time who was like a big fan of mine. For like a month, he would randomly show up to shows. And this guy, I don't know what happened to him, but he had like a horrific accident where half of his face was lower than the other half of his. He had a giant scar, and then this eye was on his cheek. And then it was horrific, whatever happened to him. And then he showed up that night, which, by the way, I wasn't advertised as to be there.
We weren't promoted. It was just a showcase show. He had no idea you were going to be there.
He had no idea I was going to be there. He and his friends happened to show up. Well, he was severely disappointed in me and decided to stand there with his gruesome face while I'm high.
He had a guilt trip laid on you.
Yeah, like he was my dad going, I'm really disappointed. I brought all my friends. And I was too high to tell him to defend myself.
I felt like your security that night.
Yeah.
I felt like this is my first step of carrying someone's bags, like it prepared me for Vicky. Was that night of like, hey, stay away. He's too high to talk to you right now.
I just remember him yelling at me with his weird eye, and my head was just down, like shaking, going, because every time I looked up, it was closer. Like his face was closer to mine, and I'm like, I can't do it. And then finally when he left, I was too high to drive home.
Yeah.
And so Dan Venti and Wolpe drove me home. And on the way home, I told him to pull over because I had to puke. So I threw up on the side of the road. Some of it got in my hair. And then I went back home. At the time, my ex and I, we were living at her aunt's mansion in La Jolla. And I show up, and her aunt and uncle are up in the living room. And I'm stoned, coming in with puke in my hair. And I just remember coming in going, hey, everybody. And then I just ran downstairs and took a shower. And I was like, what a horrific night. Yeah.
And that's the story of why Zoltan cut his hair off.
You got puke in it. That's how it works.
Do you consider that one of your worst shows? Do you think is that up there?
I don't even think it's top. Maybe
doesn't
top
even
5. Yeah,
wow,
I bombed on a cruise ship once in front of the same audience 3 times.
You recognized them, like you knew it was the same people.
Well, it's the same ship, and it's the same theater. It was the ship that I joined in Boston or something, and I think they had just come over the Atlantic, so they were all Brits.
Why did they come back the second time after you bombed the first time?
I think they liked it. I think they liked because for the people that have never
watch this yank bomb. That's chimney sweep. I don't know.
It's a little more Welsh than
is it? Okay.
I don't know. But if you've never performed for British people, it's like the Brits are like English-speaking Russians. They're cold-hearted. Like they're a cold people with cold tea drinking eyes. They're a horrible audience.
Tea drinking eyes.
You could tell, there's no caffeine. Like, they're bad people.
Bed people?
Bad people.
Bad people.
Yeah, bed people.
Like the Charlie Bucket's parents. Oh, Brett's just stay in bed all day and heckle. I know.
So I had performed for Brits before doing the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I hop on the ship. And by the way, that festival's a month long, and I bombed for the first week because I couldn't get their pacing. I couldn't get what they liked. And then by week 2, I got my bearings, and I was able to go.
What do they like?
I don't. They're very into. They don't like flash, and they don't like personality. They like words. They just like the pure words of your joke. They don't like a lot of showmanship.
I see.
And so
you could just email them the jokes, really.
Yes. Yeah. They would rather sit at home reading your tweets.
From bed.
Yeah, from bed with a spot of tea. And, but anyway, so I hop on the ship, and I didn't know it just come from the UK. And I just hear a lot of British accents, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. And then I go to the first show, and the cruise director, who's about to go on, he just, like, I could tell by his body language that he's been bombing this entire cruise. Like, he looked like, when like
he looked defeated, or
he looked defeated. He had the body language of like a Mike Tyson opponent, like just this, like I have to do this, but I don't want to. Do you remember when Mike Tyson fought Peter McNeely,
the white guy?
The white guy who was like bouncing around, but you could tell his energy was fake.
He was also like cocky beforehand, wasn't he?
Yeah, but what you could tell he didn't believe it.
Yeah.
He was trying to talk himself into it. That's how that was this.
He's like, I'm gonna make 50 million.
Right. That was this cruise director's energy off to the side. He was like, I'm going to get him. And then the audience was like Mike Tyson during the stare down where he's just watching him with his eyes while that guy's bounding back and forth. And you're like, that guy's about to eat him. That's what the audience looked like. So I go out there to perform. And what made it worse was it was formal night. So everyone's in tuxedos and evening gowns. They're dressed to the nines. And I'm bombing.
Do you have a little hoodie on or something?
No, I'm dressed in like a button. I'm not wearing a suit, you know? I dress like this. So I go out on stage and I'm bombing.
I'd like to see you dressed as like James Bond up there just performing. Jolly good.
It would be nice to bomb in a suit.
Yeah. Have you done that before?
Never. I've never worn a suit. I haven't worn a suit on stage. But I go out on stage and I'm bombing. And then like 10 minutes in, the only good joke I got out was I'm like, well, this is fun because like you guys are all dressed in tuxedos. And I'm dying, so it feels like I'm performing at my own funeral. And that was the only, and they all laughed at that. And then my arrogant attitude in my head, I'm like, I got him. And then as soon as I went back to my material, started bombing again. And then so I ate it for 30 minutes. And then I got off stage. And then now I'm stuck on the ship with these people. I see them around.
Wow, yeah.
And I bombed so bad, I hated everything British. I'm like, the Queen, the royal family sucks. Diana deserved it. Like, I was going on, like, I know I don't mean it. But at the time, I was so defeated to, like, and I know someone might hear that and go, how dare you say that? I'm like, have you bombed in front of 1,000 people in tuxedos with their British smirks? You'd feel the same way. And so, and I have 2 more days until I got to bomb again. Oh. So I just I had to go eat at the restaurants they do.
Wow.
And they all saw me and they would come up and they're like, and they would all say the same thing, like, we enjoyed your comedy.
You're a funny bloke.
Yeah, we're just British. That was their excuse for being a horrible audience.
We haven't learned laughter yet.
Yeah, we're cold, dead people. Wow. And we're just Brits. And then I had to go out and bomb 2 more times. And right before my last show, I turned to the cruise director and I go, why do we have to do this? Why, like, who? Obviously, they hate it. Like, why do I have to be a part of this? And they're like,
it's like, hey, they've come back 3 nights in a row for you.
Yeah, they like to watch me suffer. It was very weird. It was like, it reminded me.
It's like the reason I watched that show, Wipeout, you know?
Right.
I just like the.
But those guys are at least smiling as they're like tearing their ACLs on an inflatable toy or whatever they're doing. I don't know. But that one
in the
sticks
top
in
5.
Definitely top 5.
Because you had to go back and face them over and over again, and
I couldn't
trapped
leave
on the boat.
Imagine if Peter McNeely had to fight Mike Tyson 2 more times
on a boat.
On a boat,
he can't, and he has to.
People. Yeah, and he has to eat lunch with him. He has to eat lunch with him after getting a concussion by the man.
And all they have is British food, so it's like runny.
Yeah.
beans.
It's like
toast and
pork
beans.
anuses and all that stuff, and then Mike
Spotted
Tyson's
dick and-
all of it.
Yeah.
Just Mike Tyson staring at you, going, "You know, I'm gonna kick your ass again in 2 more nights. I'm gonna kick your ass." And then you're like, "Yeah, I know." And sure enough, he does it.
I like what you said the other day about Zoom shows. How, normally when you bomb, you get to leave that room
and then never go back there.
and never go back.
Yeah.
And now on a Zoom show, it's like I got to bomb and stay here.
Yeah.
In my bombed out living room.
I bombed a college show via Zoom in my living room. And the next day I woke up and I'm making coffee and I'm just like sitting. I live in a studio, so I'm like in the kitchen portion looking at my couch going, man, I don't even want to sit on that couch. The same way you bomb at a bar and you're like, I never want to go back to that bar. I was just looking at my couch going, I need to get a new couch. Like that couch has bad juju on it now. But yeah, I bombed at a college show in front of 4 people on a Zoom meeting. And
what's worse, bombing for 4 people on a Zoom meeting or bombing for 1,000 people on a cruise ship? I would think the cruise ship must be much worse.
Yeah, cruise ship's much worse because I didn't get to do this at a cruise ship and walk off. I didn't get to close my laptop.
Don't you think that the worst bomb, it's relative to sort of your expectations? Meaning that, like, if you go in thinking, well, there's 4 people, it's going to suck, big deal.
Right.
You go in going, this is 1,000 people, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Your expectations are higher, so bombing is worse. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, especially that number. It's even one thing to bomb in front of 100 people. And you're like, well, maybe those 100 people suck. But, like, bombing in front of 1,000 people in a room, that's a lot of people who just happen to think you suck. Like, that's too, like, that's way too close.
All agreed.
Right. And you're like, it's almost like if Trump had to do a speech in front of the 80 million people that voted for Biden, it would be disheartening to his idea that the election was rigged. Because you're like, man, there's a lot of people that don't like me.
Right.
That's how it felt performing in front of 1,000 people that hated me.
Sure. Like you're on the cruise ship, you're like, lock her up. And they're like,
yeah. I almost wanted to look at the audience and went like, I agree, I should get a real job. Like that's how it felt. It was just it was disheartening.
The last time I bombed badly was right before this whole pandemic thing. And it was at the Acid Vault, the Amplified.
Oh, that's a great room.
Yeah. And I had a panic attack on stage because the host had just gotten back from Italy, which was the epicenter of COVID at the time.
Oh.
So he had just literally gotten back like that week. He goes, I don't think I have COVID. Anyway, I'm bringing you up. Yeah. So I go out there and I'm like trying to wipe the mic off and I'm like, and I'm trying to tell my jokes and every third joke I just go, COVID, and I was like really having a full-on panic attack, and I bombed so badly that the host told me later they thought it was a bit. They were like, that comic did quite a character of a person having a nervous breakdown on stage. And I'm like, yeah, it was a great bit, It
was a real nervous breakdown.
It was a real nervous breakdown.
So when was that? Late February, early March?
Yeah, I think so. It was like right before everything got shut down.
Oh, so early March. Because I remember the last tour I did was I did Cleveland, Indianapolis, and Philadelphia. And I was opening with the COVID stuff. Going like, isn't that, silly, right? Everyone, you just cough and everyone wants to murder your face. Like, you can just get regular sick. Like jokes that are hack now that weren't hack back in March. I was doing it and it went well in Cleveland. And then it did okay in Indianapolis. And then by the time I got to Philadelphia that weekend, COVID was such a serious topic. People are like, shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's not funny.
Right.
And I was like, oh. Like it got worse in that like 7 days.
At least
stretch.
you had jokes though on it,
I tried.
Like I didn't have jokes. I just had, I'm gonna die. It was not funny. Nobody was like, he's gonna die. I mean, not one part of it was funny. And trying to weave your dating jokes in with COVID. Like, I'm on I'm gonna die. It was like the weirdest juxtaposition of material and freak out possible.
Have you ever bombed on a show where everyone else does great? Was that kind of that? How did everyone else do before you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone else did great. I don't I didn't really see, because I think it was just the host and then me. I think I was like, please put me on first. I'm gonna lose it, so I don't know. But from what I heard, yeah, no one else had that experience on that show. And I actually remember at the Comedy Store when everyone bombed except Albert Linton. Normally it was the other way around.
Yeah, everyone would do great, and he would bomb.
He went up, he's killing, and we're all like, oh, we're in trouble. And then, we all bombed really bad.
Like, they want comedy from 1987. What are we doing now?
You never know. Maybe he brought that crowd. I'm not really sure.
Maybe. One time I bombed. It was a 3-person show, and the opener killed. I bombed for 30, and then the headliner destroyed for 45. And those are the most demoralizing, because sometimes you can blame it on the crowd.
Yeah.
And
you want to.
And like on the cruise ship, I can go, well, I'm the only comedian, and they hated the cruise director too, so it's the crowd.
Yeah.
But in that setting where I'm sandwiched between 2 people that did well, and I was the only bad part of the show, that one hurts extra bad. So that one was up in the Bay Area, and I was breaking even on this gig. I was only going there so I could show him that I was good, so he could book me to headline, so then I could actually make a profit.
This is your tryout.
Yeah, my tryout was I'm never going to talk to you again. And so it was with Patrick DeGeer. And so I flew up with Patrick DeGeer. We landed in Oakland. The host who put on the show and booked us is this guy named Bobo, who was a Vietnam vet, and he was he could have fit into Forrest Gump. Like, he would have been like a Forrest Gump character. We pick him. He picks us up. He's already cussing about everything. He hates everyone. He called Joe Montana a communist. Like which I don't even know where he got that from.
Is the uniform's red or?
I don't get it.
Okay.
But he was just mad. And then we show up and we're performing at a really nice Italian restaurant with like really nice, kind of affluent looking people. And he goes up and does 15 minutes of really hacky material. He closed with the bit where he grabs an audience member and then they put their arms behind his back so it's coming out here. You know that old vaudeville bit? And then they, like, the whole punchline is to try to get her hand to touch your dick. And then you go, hey, you touched my dick. And,
is that something stand-up comics do?
It was like an old vaudeville bit
that,
like, from the 20s that now is completely against the Me Too movement and everything involved with sexual harassment. But he closes that bit, the place is unglued, destroyed. And I'm watching this going, well, I'm a real comedian. So I'm about to demolish this place if they like that corny crap. Yeah. And then I go on stage, and as soon as I go on stage, all the food gets delivered to the tables. And this isn't a comedy club where they quietly go, here's your breadsticks. This is, who got the manicotti?
Got chili over here!
It's that. So the first 5 minutes, no one's listening to me. Everyone's like getting their plates. Who ordered this? Who ordered that? And then I didn't realize this while watching from the back, but there was a table in the middle that was not like this prim and proper affluent table. This was just white trash from the meth town of that area. And
we brought our own macaroni.
Yeah. They're the ones that ordered. They ordered the only thing that they recognized from the Olive Garden menu, which was chicken Alfredo. And then everyone else is like having real Italian.
Can I get some ketchup?
That's what's in the front. And I guess I was trying to like be funny, and I'm like, oh, what'd you order? Let me help. And then they took offense to that. So now they're like heckling me. And then this one guy in the front holds up his ketchup bottle. I remember this. Like 5 minutes into my set, he holds up his ketchup bottle. And I'm like, I've already been bombing for 5 minutes. I go, can I help you? And he goes, I'm out of ketchup. And so he's talking to me like I'm a waiter. And I'm like, I don't even know what I said to that. But like the whole room gets like really weirded out. And then this whole table's aggressive. Like, they're, like, fighting with me now. And then 10 minutes later, I start to feel like I'm getting the room back a little bit. And that's when Bobo comes storming from the back of the room. Apparently, he was outside, and someone told him that I'm bombing and they're heckling me. So he comes up. He's got a cane. He comes up to the front, starts banging his cane on the stage, like 10 times. Bam, bam, bam. And he goes, hey, I paid good money for this guy to fly up from San Diego. You guys give him the respect that he deserves. And then he looks at me and winks. He goes, and then he leaves.
Thanks, Bobo.
And then I go right back to bombing for the rest of my set. And then as I leave, I remember this distinctly. I get off the stage, And there was one of the guys at that table that was heckling, that was barking at me. He had neck tattoos. I don't know if you've ever had someone with neck tattoos bark at you, but he's just going, "Harf, harf." And
So not words, just literal barking.
Harf. And then another guy did this. He did like the Undertaker, I'm gonna tombstone you, neck slash. And I'm like, who are these people? And then I go to the back and I stand. And then what made it worse, Patrick DeGear goes up, demolishes, crushes immediately for 50 minutes. And then at the end, Bobo goes up. And I find out that the reason that white trash table in the front was there was because the mother, the one who spewed out these no good nicks, it was her birthday and they were celebrating. And he's like, let's get all the comics up here. We're going to sing her happy birthday. So then I have to go up and sing happy birthday for a table that ruined my set and barked at me. And then the next day, he didn't give us a ride back to the airport, and instead a registered gang member gave us a ride back to the airport.
Was it the neck tattoo guy?
It was a guy with a neck tattoo, a different guy, and I told him my bomb story, and then he told me how many of his friends were dead. And then and that kind of ruined my bomb story.
Puts it in perspective.
Yeah, it put it in perspective, and I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. And so, yeah, it was just, it hurts especially bad when, like, you bomb, but then everyone else does well.
I agree. And I think the food factor plays into it a little bit for bombing, too. Like, Vicky would always talk about, I hate bombing, at the Improv where you're doing dirty jokes and people are like, ugh, eating food. And I had a similar experience with that you had when we were at a church show. It was we go to this church show. First of all, it's like at 4, so it's like during the day. It's bright out, not conducive to stand up. Also, it's a fundraiser or something for recovering addicts and alcoholics.
Oh God!
So the group there looked not primed for laughter, and they had us perform at a podium. Not like on a stage with a mic that could move, but a podium with a little like
all you can do is adjust
where you're just like and the speakers were just the shitty like from the ceiling, so it just all sounded like welcome to the church. And the podium was set up under the creakiest ceiling fan in the world, so it was like and as we started the comedy, they did a similar thing where they go, spaghetti is served. And everybody gets up. And this room is like the size of, it's a humongous room, this church show. Everyone gets up, goes to the back of the room to get online for the spaghetti. So now there's only one table with one guy with a camera pointed at me at this podium. And everyone else is like 100 yards away online for spaghetti. And I'm just like, and then a baby crawled by behind the podium. Just a random addict's baby or whatever, right? Like, and I'm like, one of you alcoholics.
Okay, what's
your baby? There's a baby here.
Get one of you alcoholics.
Is this a drunk baby? Oh, God, I'm just crawling around. And then after you bomb for 20, 30 minutes, whatever, you leave the podium to sit down in between two addicts eating spaghetti. And I'm just sitting there going, it's pretty good spaghetti.
It's pretty good.
And they're both, good try. And you're like, oh.
There's, I always argue with people and tell them that comedy is not art. It's not an art form. And I mean, what a great example that it's not art form where you're doing it and then someone goes, spaghetti's ready. And then the entire room gets up and goes and gets spaghetti.
Spaghetti is much better than comedy.
Always.
Yeah.
I'd rather eat spaghetti than do comedy.
I wanted to get on that line.
Can we get spaghetti now?
I would like to. I want to be at a podium. Oh, God, yeah. I think food is bad. Expectations.
Yeah, and then
food and then traveling to go bomb.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You talk about flying across the country to perform in a cafeteria at a college for 2 people.
All the time.
And there's nothing worse than that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Of traveling to bomb. You know what I mean?
Traveling to bomb, and then especially bombing in front of younger kids that haven't had a job yet. And then so they're just judging you, and you just want to grab them by the shoulders and go, this is what I do for a living, you little turd. And then, but you're like, I can't because, there's a $2,000 check waiting, and I can't assault the student body.
Yeah.
And yeah, all of it. I think we'll definitely do more of these.
I have one last one if we have time.
Please.
This is my. I just saved it because it's my worst show ever.
Okay, then
and
we're
it
saving
combines
it for that.
most of these factors. So Brandon Young and I, that's always a good start.
Always a great start to a bad show.
Comic that we came up with, sort of. We flew to Michigan. Now, originally, Zoltan and I did a little tour together to Michigan and Chicago and stuff with this group. There was like 5 of us. But on the second run, Brandon's like, we don't need these other guys to split the money. Let's just go ourselves. So it was just me and Brandon. Whew! So we got to cover a full show, just him and I. He'll do a half an hour, I'll do a half an hour. One night, I'll go first. Next night, he'll go first. We're performing at churches. Bomb city. Every church. Bomb, 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 bomb. The biggest bomb, though, was Saturday at noon in a school.
In a school.
He's got us booked to do bring awareness to children that need to eat healthy snacks. Me and the other obese comic that are booked to talk about healthy snacks. And I go, it's not going to be just kids here. He goes, nah, it won't be kids. It's going to be adults. No, it's 26 people. 6 of them were adults. The rest were all children under the age of 8.
Oh my God.
And how big do you think this auditorium was for 26 people? It was 700-seater. So we're in a 700-seater, like an arena, with 26 people, 6 of them watching, 20 of them running around the aisles playing. And Brandon bombs for half an hour. I bomb for what feels like the rest of my life. Afterwards, we stand in this hallway where the people have to walk by us and they're like, yeah. They paid us $26, so I guess we got $1 per person.
They paid you $26?
Flew to Michigan for that. Now, the way it ended was, Brandon was really sad about it too. And he goes, to cheer us up, let's go to Kmart. They got these special banana Twinkies. So he goes into the Kmart to get banana Twinkies, and I just go, you know what? I'm going to stay in this parking lot and cry. And that's my worst show of all time. Noon for children in a school, 700-seater, fundraiser for healthy snacks, obese comics, banana Twinkie in Michigan.
Yeah, you win.
And he called his wife while he was getting banana Twinkies. He's like, I might quit comedy. And I was like, he didn't, though.
He didn't. That's the worst thing about comedians, is that we always bounce back.
That is the worst.
Like, that should have been the death blow. But then...
We should have both quit.
Yeah, everyone...
Just based on the planning alone.
Every bomb
we thought
that
this
I've
was
had.
going to be a good idea.
Right. It's a poor business. It's almost as bad as not owning your dishwasher.
Yeah.
And then just renting it and having that get repoed. I know that's a callback to something we never recorded, but that's what it is.
I think the saddest thing about this is, like, right now, I'm thinking about these worst shows, and I'm going, I kind of miss it.
I know.
I kind of miss
going
and doing any show.
I miss a swift kick to the nuts. Yeah. I do. It's something about it. We'll get back to it sometime.
Let's take edibles and go to the palace.
And get some spaghetti. That was the first one of these. I think I
fun.
very much enjoyed it.
I hope we didn't go too long, but
no,
we have a lot of bad shows between the two of us.
Yeah, that was only a 10% probably.
There's so many more.
Yeah. Please subscribe, share, follow, retweet, whatever you do, and don't forget to subscribe to the DharmaDen.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
That was awesome.
That was fun.
I had to tell that one. I mean, I just
was
saving that because.